You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tian. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, it's over. The season is over, and I don't think I'm the only one to say it was over way too soon.
It was over way earlier than I thought it would be, especially going into the second half of that playoff game in Chicago. But if you want to get prepared for next year, though, I'll tell you, our show's sponsored. They'll help you out. Our show's sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King for more than 30 years. Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. Find them on the web at theticketking.com. That's theticketking.com, or you can visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. And even though the Packer season is over, Gil and you and I are going to be here all offseason. You can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on Packers Talk Network on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type Packers Talk Network in the search bar, click on PackersTalk.com link with the green background, the yellow goalpost, click on the bell, subscribe, turn notifications on, join the discussion, chat with us live. And there's a lot to discuss right now, Gil, as we enter the offseason, a little earlier than we thought for the Packers this year. And that's all revolved around the head coach, Matt LaFleur. He is entering the final year of his current contract. This discussion comes after the Packers blew a 21-3 lead in the wildcard loss to the Bears last weekend. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported, though, despite losing that game, the Packers, they're working with LaFleur on a new contract. But this season in general, Gil, the theme of the year has been just blown leads. That was the theme of the 2025 season for the Packers, where they blew 9+ point leads against the Browns, Broncos, Cowboys, and twice against the Bears. And that resulted in an 0-4-1 record in those games. Gil, this is the blunt force question, where Packers lost their last 5 games of the season, including the playoffs. Should Matt LaFleur be the head coach of the Green Bay Packers in 2026?
You know, I was always a big Matt LaFleur fan. He was a breath of fresh air in 2019 when he took over. Team goes to back-to-back NFC title games. But I really, at this point, have to question whether or not he's capable of getting this team beyond good or pretty good. He is a consistent winner during the regular season, but his teams just seem to lack that killer instinct. And I'll be honest with you, by the end of this season, when you lose your last 4 regular season games and your playoff games, so that's 5 straight losses, and the way that the team lost and the things that just don't seem to be improving, Saturday night last week, he lost me. I actually, after that loss, switched to believing that it's probably better, and I don't take any joy in saying it, but it's probably better to move on from Matt LaFleur as Packers head coach. What are your thoughts?
It's such a loaded question. I mean, it's such a loaded scenario and topic, because you know, if the Packers do move on from Matt LaFleur, he is going to get a head coaching job right away.
Yes.
A third of the jobs are open right now within the league. Or I'm sorry, a quarter of the jobs are open within the league. And LaFleur would be the 9th. If the Packers do move on, that'd be the 9th head coach opening this offseason. LaFleur would get scooped up in a heartbeat. My guess would probably be my guess would probably be Atlanta. That's where my money would be for sure. But the thing is with the Packers, where they were in total control on offense in that first half of Chicago. The Bears adjusted at halftime. The Packers didn't. I don't know. Well, I don't know, actually, Gil. We really don't know. It's like, did the Packers not adjust, or just the Bears, did they get a good screaming in the locker room and they essentially took total control on defense in the second half? Because the offensive line looked totally out of sorts, where it's like, and you're always trying to dissect as a fan, or, you know, the position we're in, where we luckily get to talk about the Packers once per week, Gil, where was it more of an execution issue or was it more of a coaching issue in that second half? But this has been the theme all year, where things go sideways. It seems like LaFleur kind of gets frazzled and gets out of sorts. And if things don't go according to plan, that's where it's been really tough for Matt LaFleur to counter that and make sure this team can get to the finish line with the W.
Yeah, looking back at the second half against the Bears, I think it was both coaching and execution. The execution clearly wasn't there. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But one thing that we saw, the Bears started to blitz. And, they disguised some of their blitzes. They put 6 at the line and only send 4 or 5, depending on the play. But the Packers' offensive line was being overwhelmed. And Matt LaFleur did not adjust. When they're coming like that, go to quick release passes. 1, 2, 3, balls out. Throw the ball to a running back, a tight end, or a receiver who's in the exact area where the guy is blitzing from. Take your 6 yards on that play and come up 2nd and 4. But the problem is the Packers could not run in this game effectively. Mm-hmm. And they just kept trying to throw deep downfield, which worked pretty well in the first half, but did not work in the second half. And in the second half, when your first 4 drives are punt, 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 and punt, and you get 1 first down in those 4 drives, you're not adjusting quickly enough. And the strategy had to change. Whether or not the team could then execute it, that's a different story, and maybe they couldn't. But, what's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I sort of got that feeling that we were seeing. When are you going to change it up? Go to a screen pass, go to a 3-step drop and get the ball out quickly. Counter what they're doing, because what they're doing is giving them an advantage. So take that advantage away. And it took him until the middle of the fourth quarter to start to do that.
They did do a screen pass to Darian Kennard. Don't you remember that, Gil?
Oh, please.
I mean, they did do a screen. It wasn't who we thought it should go to.
Yeah, but... and it resulted in a fumble. But yes, they did indeed do a screen pass to Darian Kennard.
But there were a lot of execution issues, like you said, where Brandon McManus misses 2 field goals and an extra point.
Yep.
7 points right there. I can't blame Matt LaFleur for that. You can't. That's on the kicker. That's a problem. And even the McManus miss right before halftime, it was a 55-yarder. The wind was swirling. That was like, okay, whatever. That's fine.
Right.
But missing the extra point and missing that 42-yarder in the fourth quarter, those were inexcusable, in my opinion. So that was definitely a problem. And those were situations where you had to kick in those situations too. And then also in the final drive of the game where the Packers nearly got the win, Jaden Reed catches that football with 40-plus seconds to go. The Packers are probably getting in the end zone on that drive, Gil, because then Sean Ryan gets hurt after Jaden Reed makes a catch a couple plays later. You burn valuable time off the clock without a timeout. And that was just, that kind of reflects on coaching too, because you had to burn a timeout earlier in the game, earlier in that half, because you did not have the proper amount of guys on defense and you didn't have the proper alignment. So that comes down to coaching and the details. I think the main problem I have with LaFleur also, and I'm really torn. Overall, I'm really torn if he should be back or not. I do think you have a little bit of a window the Packers are dealing with where it's like, you might as well have Matt LaFleur with this window. That's where I'm kind of leaning. But it just seems like I think he's a really smart guy. I think he's a really good coach. But I think he just gets in his own way sometime and gets in his own head and the details. It just doesn't seem like he's detail-oriented. And we're going to talk about it later in this episode, Gil, where if the Packers do move on from LaFleur, who we think they should go with. And I want a guy, if they're going to replace LaFleur with anyone, I want someone who's really, really, really good with the details. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest difference between the Packers winning and losing these close games. And the thing is, the Packers were in every single game this year, and they still finished, 9-8-1 overall.
Yeah.
This is a much better team than a 9-8-1 team.
It is. And the thing that people say, oh, but the injuries, and I get it. The injuries were definitely a problem, not even so much in the quantity, but how many of the Packers' best players miss significant time. But the problems that you're talking about predate the injuries. The unforced errors, lining up illegal formation penalties, false start penalties, burning timeouts because you're not coming out of the huddle in time, or don't have the right personnel in there. It's unbelievable that these things just don't get corrected. And, how many times is Keyshawn Nixon going to jump on the pile and take a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty or a taunting penalty? These are the things like, look, Quay Walker had issues with discipline in his rookie year. He grew, he matured, he overcame it. Credit to Quay Walker. But at some point, the coaching staff has to come up to Keyshawn Nixon and say, hey, you can't do this. You're killing this team. Whether he has to sit for a series, whether he has to, do laps at practice, I don't know what you do, but something has to change with the accountability of this team, which I just don't think there was enough of. And, you go back to the kicks. If he makes the extra point, the Packers just need a field goal on that final drive to tie the game. And they were already in field goal range. It changes everything. So, look, I mean, I like Matt LaFleur. I think he's a good coach. I don't know if he is capable of getting a team beyond good to excellent. And the talent is there on this roster to be better than 9-8-1. I think the talent, you can win 12 games with this team, maybe more. But it just seems like the whole is less than the sum of its parts. And to me, that reflects on coaching. And one other major issue with LaFleur that I have, he's a little too loyal to his assistants.
Yes.
And
we'll talk about that in a bit. Talk about that in a bit.
Okay, so we'll get back to that. But
I mean, we could talk for hours about this conversation, honestly, because this is the big topic of conversation right now, and we've talked about it a lot in previous episodes too. But I think again, I am truly torn whether or not he comes back. If he comes back, it's like I trust the Green Bay Packers are going to make the best decision for the organization. Right. Not one player, not one individual is bigger than the entire organization. I trust that the Packers, they're taking their time with this, and they're going to be very level-headed with this. But the players clearly love Matt LaFleur. But the thing is, though, where I kind of lean towards being okay with making a change is because when the Packers had that 27-24 lead and on offense, they called a timeout to try to reset, get a good play calling. Then they had to delay a game coming out of the timeout, which led to the missed field goal from McManus. The delay game coming out of a timeout, Gil, it reminded me when you go across the border to Minnesota when the Vikings were so close to going to the Super Bowl in 2009, and Brad Childress called a timeout on that final Vikings offensive drive of regulation. The Vikings offense had 12 men in the huddle coming out of that timeout. It pushed them into short punt, deep field goal territory. So they had to keep the offense out there. Brett Favre infamously tried to make a play with his arm, and he forced a throw across his body into the middle of the field. It was intercepted by Tracy Porter, sent the game to overtime. But people blame Favre for obviously that mistake of a throw, but that doesn't happen if Brad Childress is better with the details late in that game. And that delay game of the Packers on Saturday, it reminds me so much of that ineptitude from Childress and his staff in 2009 when that happened. And the very next season, the Vikings were a disaster and Childress got fired during the season. And that's where it's like, it's a loss like that and stuff like that, where it's like, that's how you lose a team. Even though the players, a lot of guys are vouching for him in the locker room at Monday morning locker cleanup, but it's stuff like that piles up and then it reaches its boiling point. And that's what I'm worried we're trending towards.
Look, unfortunately, over the course of this season, the team that beat the Packers most often was the Packers.
Yep.
And that, to me, is a big red flag for a coach, because the coach's job is to put his players in a position to be successful. And when you can't overcome unforced errors, lining up, without the right number of guys on the line of scrimmage, not getting the plays in, having 12 or 10 guys in the huddle, all of that stuff just reflects on, negatively on the coaching staff. And if he's going to stay, I think he needs to hire an assistant coach at some level who is very detail-oriented, who is going to help him with these things. Look, all coaches have their strengths and their weaknesses, but if you're going to bring back Matt LaFleur, you got to bring back some assistants that will help him with some of those weaknesses.
And Gil, let's segue right into that. If LaFleur does stay put, What are the minimum coaching changes you want to see on this staff?
Well, let's start with Rich Bisaccia, please.
He needs to go.
He needs to go.
1,000,000%. I'm with you there. I'm done with him.
And I like Rich Bisaccia. I have nothing against Rich Bisaccia personally. But, he's been here, 3-4 years? And he was supposed to be the guy who was going to finally solve the special teams problems, and the problems just keep persisting. Special teams, in addition to the missed kicks by McManus, you're giving up 36, 37-yard punt return at a key point in the second half. You can't have that kind of stuff. How many times did we see the kickers not kicking into the landing zone? It's just sloppy penalties and excuse me. So, unfortunately, the special teams doesn't seem to be getting any better. He's the highest paid special teams coordinator in the league. They promoted him to assistant head coach. I don't see why he has a job in 2026 with the Packers.
Yeah, they need a new, he's the first one that's got to go. New special teams coordinator, new assistant head coach at a minimum. That's what the Packers need. The only good thing that Bisaccia has done is develop Daniel Whalen, because he is a tremendous punter. He's a very good holder too. That guy's going to be in the NFL. Hopefully he's going to be in the Packers for a long time. That's the one positive I would say with Rich Bisaccia, is that we have a great punter because of Rich Bisaccia probably had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So he needs to go, in my opinion. I think obviously you're probably going to get a new D coordinator if Jeff Hafley does land a head coaching job. He's getting a lot of interviews and there's a lot of openings. I got to imagine he's going to get one of those jobs, Gil. And Matt LaFleur even said, we have a plan in place, in the event that he leaves. Possibly Raheem Morris comes in to be the D coordinator, a guy with head coaching experience who could help with the details and possibly be an assistant head coach as well. I do think the Packers need a new offensive line coach as well. Yes. I don't think Luke Butkus is the answer. I think there's too much shuffling going on. I know they love to cross-train their guys, but I think that's a problem. I would love to have Adam Stenavich as the O-line coach again, because I feel like the Packers' best years for the O-line was when Stenavich was fully in charge of that group. And then an O coordinator.
Accept the demotion, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, you can't demote him. I hear you.
You'd have to double him up.
Correct. And I don't know about O coordinator, where it's I'm open if they want to change it, but I don't think that's necessarily the top thing. But special teams coordinator, assistant head coach, those are for sure the top two changes they need to make. I really want Jeff Hafley to stay put. I don't want him to get a job, but he probably is going to get a job. So we're going to need that too. So I think you're going to, at a minimum, if Matt LaFleur stays, the coaching staff needs a shakeup.
Yeah, and I think you got to change your offensive line coach. I just don't see this group, again, less than the sum of its parts. And I mean, that's starters. You never know where other people are going to go. Some people get promoted. Some people take jobs with other teams. But new offensive line coach, new special teams coordinator, you probably need a new defensive coordinator. I've heard people say, hey, Matt LaFleur should hire someone to call the plays. I don't think he would agree to that. That's his forte. That's what he does best. And, say what you want about some of the decisions that he's made and some of the details that he misses. His play calling is very, very good.
And Gil, someone in the chat chimed in, is there a dream candidate you would like if LaFleur gets canned? And that's a perfect segue into what we're talking about here. If LaFleur does go, who are your ideal replacements? Obviously, John Harbaugh was a thought at the top of that list, but now he's the New York Giants head football coach, and he just signed reportedly a massive contract.
Yeah.
So the first head coach opening this offseason has been filled in the NFL. Who's the dream candidate or candidates you would entertain if Matt LaFleur does hit the road?
Would you consider Jeff Hafley?
I'm tough. It's tough because I would. Players love him, but I don't want Ray Rhodes 2.0 where you're promoting your defensive coordinator. I don't. And I just think, you need either a CEO type or you need an offensive mind.
Okay.
And just to have with the quarterback, because Jeff Hafley could probably hire a really good O coordinator. And this is the issue that Tampa had for multiple years in a row, where Dave Canales helped save Baker Mayfield in Tampa. He gets the head job in Carolina. They win the division this past year.
Yep.
Liam Cohn keeps having the offense play at a high level in Tampa. He gets the head job in Jacksonville. They win their division in the AFC this year. You get a really good O coordinator, and they're probably going to be gone. So that's where I would be open to possibly Jeff Hafley getting promoted. But I think you just need to have, and the Packers, ever since the Holmgren days, ever since Ron Wolf and Mike Holmgren entered the building at 1265 Lombardi, they've had their most success when the head coach is an offensive and a quarterback is best with the offense and the quarterbacks.
So who would you look at if you're not doing Jeff Hafley, which to me, you keep Jeff Hafley in the organization. That way you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. But I get what you're saying about an offensive coach. So who would you look at as an offensive coach?
As an offensive coach or as a head coach?
As a head coach with an offensive background.
Yeah. So I said either offense or essentially a CEO type. And I don't know if it's doable. And this may sound silly. I've been talking about how it's the details. It's the attention to the little things that I don't feel like has been there with Matt LaFleur. That's his big problem. And his his inability to adjust oftentimes how frazzled he gets. I know he signed a massive extension at the college level this offseason or during the season to keep bigger programs away. But why don't you give Curt Cignetti from Indiana a call? Because that guy is an unbelievable CEO. He wins everywhere. He's a Saban disciple. That guy runs such a good ship. Look at his team at Indiana. Look what he's done in 2 years there. I know it's the college level. I know it's an unbelievable thing that he's done in 2 years there, where they're playing for the national title, and they're probably going to win the national championship. That's a program that has never been at the level of the Ohio States or the Alabamas or anything like that consistently, and he's done that in 2 years.
Yeah,
he is so detail-oriented. He is so on top of it. He is so dialed in. His teams are physically tough. They're mentally tough. They're smart. They don't stub their toes. The discipline is unbelievable in general on that team. That's why I would definitely entertain getting that guy, because I think he's going to be an NFL head coach. If he leaves Indiana, I think he's going to be a head coach in the NFL.
But does he want to go to the NFL, leave the college ranks? I mean, right now he can be elected a demigod in Bloomington right now.
He could, absolutely. And I don't think he would leave, but I think it's worth a phone call.
Oh, absolutely.
Even a guy like Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame, I wouldn't mind giving him a call either, because I feel like he's got some really good quality traits as a coach with the details and everything like that. Notre Dame's a well-run program too, and Marcus Freeman, I feel like, has been a better coach there than Brian Kelly. Outside of that, an offensive coach, the problem is there's not really a lot of top offensive coaches that are really available right now. You know what I mean, Gil? Yeah. Unless something happens where Kevin O'Connell and Minnesota decide to part ways all of a sudden,
I'm not anticipating that.
Not going to happen. Or if you could poach someone from a well-established team, there's just not a lot of candidates right now. But if they move on from LaFleur, I'm giving Curt Cignetti a call. I'm giving it a shot, because why not?
It's worth a phone call for sure. I don't know if you'll get him, but it's worth a phone call.
Yeah. I mean, for you, Gil, any idea, anyone that it's like, okay, this is the guy I want if LaFleur moves on?
Yeah, I haven't really, picked a guy at this point. I mean, if tomorrow they announce that they're moving on, I'll start to really dig into some of the best available candidates. But I still feel that LaFleur is going to be back. That at this point, the longer the negotiations go on, the less likely it is that they're going to get a new coach. Because if you wait longer, more guys get interviewed, more guys get hired. Your best candidates come off the board. The only thing that I think is going to mess up LaFleur's potential return is money and term. And if that's the case, memo to Brian Gutekunst and to Ed Policy, figure it out fast, one way or the other. Either you're signing him or you're not extending him, but do it within the next few days.
Someone in the chat also brought up the possibility of Brian Flores. I don't think that's a bad idea to think about that.
Bad idea.
He obviously, it was a rough end in Miami. He sued the NFL. That's obviously the history, but He's clearly a great coach. His players love him. His defensive schemes are so diverse. I think I thought he was a solid head coach in Miami, but obviously things happened there. And things got ugly there for a little bit, but I think he's definitely learned from that. And he's probably matured from that too. There's a lot that happened there, but Brian Flores would not be a bad potential candidate. But again, that's a defensive mind. I don't know if I want necessarily a 100% defensive mind. I want, if you're not going with an offensive mind or a quarterback, a coach with the emphasis on quarterbacks, then you got to go with a CEO type. I don't know if Brian Flores is quite at that level quite yet.
No, I'm not sure. I mean, look, again, worth a phone call? Absolutely. But number one candidate, maybe not right now.
Maybe, yeah, I'm with you there, Gil. Clint Kubiak, actually from Seattle. That's one that I would maybe entertain.
Okay.
So he's done good things up there with the Seahawks, and he's probably gonna get a head coaching job elsewhere.
Yeah.
But Clint Kubiak would be a guy, if I'm the Packers, I'd give him a call. And I'm saying this too, where it's like if the Packers job does open up, even though Matt LaFleur would be a hot candidate elsewhere, I think the Packers job would be a very hot job too, where it's like, hey, that's a very good team that just needs to get over the hump, essentially. That's the position the Packers are in. This is a team that's in great shape.
You've got your franchise quarterback. You've got, talent on both sides of the ball. You've got an all-pro in Micah Parsons. I can't imagine that job would not be attractive. Now, the sort of caveat is the Packers tend to not spend a lot of money on their coaches compared to some other teams, more on the assistants than on the head guys. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, right? And I don't know if we're getting to it this year.
New president in charge, maybe a new way of thinking, new way of paying out coaching salaries coming up moving forward. It's always interesting. We never really know what the coaching salaries are. That's not public information typically. It's reported through agents, but we don't really know.
That is true. Now, are we going to discuss the loyalty thing? Is that?
Maybe. I want to know, Gil, because we're adding up time right here.
Yeah.
I think before we get to that, what's your prediction? Is Matt LaFleur going to be the head coach next season?
Yes, I think he is. What's your prediction?
Do too.
Okay.
I do too. I think right now you got to think where the contract discussions that are being reported going on between LaFleur and the Packers. My guess is the Packers probably ideally an extension would be 1 or 2 years, and for LaFleur it'd be closer to 4 years for an extension. So my guess is eventually they meet in the middle, and it's a 2 or 3 year extension essentially. The reason why I think also he's going to be back, I think a lot of the Packer players love him. Micah Parsons was talking to reporters in the locker room at Monday clean out, noted how he personally told LaFleur that he was one of the reasons he wanted to come to Green Bay.
Yep.
And Parsons, man, you talk about a leader. He said at some point the players themselves have to hold themselves accountable. The coaches can only do so much. Jordan Love gave Matt LaFleur a vote of confidence after the loss to the Bears on Saturday. And I do think, Gil, if Matt LaFleur does move on, I think trading him is more likely. It's more likely to happen if he moves on rather than an absolute firing, because I think he'd be a coach in hot demand for sure.
And maybe you get back one of those 2 first-round picks you traded away for Parsons.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And for absolutely. It's interesting because coaching trades don't usually happen, but it sounds like with the Steelers, with Mike Tomlin, he's announced that he's stepping down after 19 years in charge. But the thing is, the Steelers are still going to hold his rights. So there's a potential chance he sits out of here, and then maybe the Steelers trade his rights to another team in 2027, which is what what the Saints did essentially with Denver when they traded Sean Payton to the Broncos for their first-round pick that year when he moved on after sitting out for a year.
And think about this. It's an amazing statistic. The Steelers are now going to hire only their 4th head coach since 1969.
That's the job, man. If you want security, that's the job. Holy smokes. I don't think people, just the regular everyday jobs can hold a job that long, with that kind of security. It's amazing. But Mike Tomlin never had a losing season in Pittsburgh. So that's pretty outstanding. And he's a guy on the Packers, I would consider giving him a call too, just because I think he's an excellent leader of men. And I think it's just I think he would be the right guy to maybe get this team over the hump, just to possibly. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's always been a really good coach. I think he does more than what he's given on a yearly basis in Pittsburgh. Maybe Green Bay could be a fit for him down the road too.
Could you see a trade of LaFleur for Tomlin? You know, I mean,
wouldn't that be something? It's like, oh, yeah, another trade by the Packers. Oh, which player did they get? No, coach. You know, yeah. So that would be very interesting. But Gil, what kind of you think LaFleur's going to be back? What kind of extension do you think he's going to get? 1, 2, 3, 4 years? What kind of extension?
I think it's probably 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, that seems to be where we're heading. It's just a matter of the money. And you wonder, too, it's like if LaFleur really wants more money to spend on his assistant coaches, too, because I think that could potentially be the big holdup right now between Monday's report of the Packers wanting to bring him back and him still not reaching a new deal or a new extension agreement yet.
Yeah, and if I'm Matt LaFleur, I would demand that because you need better assistant coaches, obviously. I think based on all the things we've discussed and what we've seen over the years, you want to upgrade there.
Yeah, so much going on. Obviously, I like to think by this time next week, Gil, we'll know more with what's going on in the Packers head coaching position. But right now, obviously, the Packers, they're entering the offseason a little sooner than we were hoping for, especially after the Micah Parsons deal back in late August, right before the season opener. What articles, Gil, you have online for the Packers Post and Cheesehead TV?
Well, on the Packers Post, I talked about the 5 areas that this team needs to deal with this offseason, 5 biggest areas of need as we enter the offseason. And for Cheesehead, I took a look at the cornerback position, which I think is probably the number 1 position that this team needs to fortify. And, why? Basically, because Keyshawn Nixon as CB1 ain't going to cut it.
No, Keyshawn Nixon as a second cornerback,
yes,
slot corner, absolutely, yes. Totally game. But I agree, they need a massive upgrade at cornerback 1 for sure.
And we saw how bad it got after Parsons got injured because Parsons covered for a lot of the deficiencies at the cornerback position for the first 13 games of the year.
Your frontline guys and the safeties that they have in Green Bay too helped a lot, but yeah, those corners just not good enough for sure. Gil, how about some trivia?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, this has been a coach-themed episode of No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Network. A big change in the NFL happened this week after the first weekend of the playoffs wrapped up. Longtime head coach Mike Tomlin stepped down from his post as Steelers head coach, as we just mentioned a few minutes ago. He was the Steelers head coach for the past 19 seasons, never had a losing season. And this came 1 week after the Baltimore Ravens fired their head coach and now New York Giants head coach John Harbaugh after 18 seasons in Baltimore. Now, before the end of the regular season, Tomlin and Harbaugh were the 2 longest tenured active NFL head coaches. Gil, who is now the longest tenured head coach in the NFL? And I'll give you a hint. He has prior Packer ties.
Andy Reid.
You nailed it. You didn't even need the hint. That is right. It's Andy Reid. He's the longest tenured head coach now in the NFL. He's been the head man for the Kansas City Chiefs since 2013. Reid's led the Chiefs to 3 Super Bowl titles during his tenure. And in case you need a refresher on Reid's ties to the Packers, he was the Packers tight ends coach, assistant O-line coach, and quarterbacks coach for Mike Holmgren, and 1 year for Ray Rhodes from 1992 through 1998 before he became the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles in 1999. And in case you're wondering after that, the next longest tenured head coaches are Bills head coach Sean McDermott and former Matt LaFleur colleagues Sean McVay with the Rams and Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers. And Gil, with Andy Reid, I remember hearing Ron Wolf speak years ago. Ron Wolf and Bob Harlan, those guys, if you ever have an opportunity, I'll say this to fans listening. If you ever have an opportunity to listen to Ron Wolf and Bob Harlan speak in a public forum, go, because they are awesome. They could talk all day. They talked for 2 hours. I felt like I could have been there for another day. Ron Wolf was asked what his biggest regret was as Packers GM, and he said it was, even though he loved Ray Rhodes, obviously they loved Ray Rhodes, it was hiring Ray Rhodes instead of Andy Reid. And you wonder if Andy Reid was hired as the head coach in Green Bay to succeed Holmgren, probably would have been a little different. I think Favre would have maybe gotten another couple Super Bowls. Probably,
although it took Andy Reid a long time to get a Super Bowl championship, so we don't know.
I mean, he was in Philly for 14 years. He's been in Kansas City for 13 years for good reason. The guy knows how to coach, and he gets it. And that, you wonder, it's like, you wonder this too, Gil, where it's like, if he would have been hired to succeed Holmgren, would he still be the head coach in Green Bay today? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he would be, honestly.
It's possible. It's possible.
Because if you could hold that job in Philly for 14 years where they tend to be a little impatient and the fans get a little rowdy and everything that, and they're not as level-headed as the Packers organization, I think he would have been Green Bay for a very long time, for sure.
Very, very possible. Very, very. 27 years, I don't know, but very, very possible that he would have been there long term. Yes.
I'm just saying. Holmgren, his coaching tree is amazing. Andy Reid, definitely near the top in terms of quality coaches he had under him for a time.
Look up that 1994 Packers coaching staff. It has to be the deepest in the history of the NFL. Or if it's not number one, it's very close.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, we had it so good. And
you had Gruden, you had Reed, you had so many guys, Ray Rhodes, you had so many guys.
Steve Mariucci,
Mooch, that's right. So unbelievable.
Awesome.
Yep. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter @GoPackers and @GBPackers. To stay up to date on all things Packers or to ask us questions, or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.